Hello everyone, we're going to continue on with our systems of equations, word problems, and we're going to look at a couple other examples of these as well as one that is a different structure than the one that we've seen before. But let's start with one that just appears quite different. We have that the sum of two numbers is 92. Their difference is 20. What are the two numbers? Now remember, when we're looking at systems of equations in word problems, we're going to have basically two options. We're either going to have a case where it gives us two totals and we can then set up the equation, or we're going to have a situation where you have like an option 1, option 2, and in that case I'll show you how to set that up. Whew. Trouble talking today. But what we are going to do with this one is see that what we have here are two different totals. So our first total is 92 and our second total is 20 because they are the results that they got after doing something with two numbers. And remember that when we're looking at this, we're going to be looking for totals, but we're also going to be looking for variables. And the variables that we are looking for here are the two numbers. You can always tell what your variables are by what the question's asking for. So I'm going to call these two numbers A and B. And remember that they're going to be telling us how to combine A and B to get these totals. So for the first total of 92, I'm going to take the sum of the two numbers. So that means that I take A and B and I add them together because the sum of those numbers is 92. So that's how we get 92. With the other one, I have a total of 20. How did they combine A and B to get 20? Well, it tells us that their difference is 20. Well, remember that difference is subtraction. So what I have is A minus B is equal to 20. At this point, I have a system of equations, and I can go about solving it as I normally will. And if you missed class today, you are going to have to solve the rest of this equation. Don't forget that if you have a positive b and a negative b, they're going to eliminate very well if you add these together. That will allow you to find A. And then once you have A, you can substitute it back in and find B, check your answer, and send me a picture to make sure that everything is in line. But we still have other situations to deal with, so let's look at one of the bigger problems. So you're going on a trip and you have an option of two different cars to rent. One car has a down payment of $50 and charges $25 each day it's used. Another car requires a down payment of $10 but charges $30 each day it's used. When will the costs for the two cars be equal, and which will be the better deal before that day, and which one will be better after? Well, remember that with systems, it's either going to be two totals or we're going to have two situations. So when I'm looking at this, I don't see anything that's really a total. I know that I'm going to be paying money based on two different situations. It's either this one or this one. Now, since we're looking at options, then we're going to set up this a little bit different. We're going to look at option 1, and we're going to set up an equation for it, and then we're going to look at option 2 and set up an equation for that one. So when I'm doing this, I split it into my two options in the word problem itself, and I like to just underline it so I know what to focus on. In option 1, I have a down payment of $50 and a charge of $25 each day. Now what that tells me is how much I'm going to spend. Well, I don't know how much I'm going to spend yet, right? Because I don't even know how many days I'm going to be there. But I do know that I would pay $50 one time, so it's a constant, it doesn't get a variable, and I would pay $25 for every day. So let's just call D the number of days. And I'm going to write that down to record it. And our T is our total money. So now I know my two variables, right? And I have presented my first situation. This is an equation that will tell me how much I spend in that first situation. But here, even though I have an equation, I still have another equation that needs to be solved, and that is for the other option. So this is option 2, where I could pay $10 and pay a little bit more every day. So again, I don't know my total, but I do know I'd pay $10 just one time, and I would do $30 repeatedly. Now look at what you've set up. You have two equations and you're trying to see when the cost for the two will be equal. In other words, when will these two things match up? These two equations entirely match up. Well, that tells me that what we're dealing with here is a system. What case will have both of these be true at the same time? And since I have two equations, I can solve them using what we've learned from systems of equations. I can substitute this in for this t. I can use systems of equations with elimination. I can graph. Any of those options will work, and they will tell me the number of days and the amount that I would spend for those number of days. And that's what I'd like you to finish for tomorrow if you were not in class. And just skip this last question for now. We're going to come back to the application portion in a little bit. Let's take a look at our final situation. And this one actually is a bit of a return to what we had yesterday, but it's good to have additional practice. And remember that all of these look a little different, even though they're doing similar things. And what I'm ultimately trying to decide is what two equations do I have? And they're generally those two options. They're either going to give us two totals, and I'll have to find what I did to add the variables or subtract the variables, or they're going to give me two options, and I'm going to treat each option independently. So let's look at this one and decide first, am I looking at two totals or two situations, two options? The Lakers scored a total of 80 points in a basketball game against the Bulls. The Lakers made a total of 37 2-point and 3-point baskets. How many 2-point shots did the Lakers make? How many 3-point shots did the Lakers make? Well, okay. Right away, I'm seeing the word total. And so that means that 80 points is one of our totals. So I'm going to write out 80. And I'm going to keep in mind that 80 here is referring to points, and I'm going to be combining things to get that total. The second thing I have is that the Lakers made a total of 37. Now this is 2-point and 3-point baskets, so this is the total number of baskets. So I'm going to have a total of 37 baskets or shots. Now the reason why I include these is because these are going to help me figure out what they did to find these numbers. So let's read the rest of the thing, because don't forget that when you're looking for what variables you're going to be solving for, it's usually going to take place in the questions at the end. How many 2-point shots did the Lakers make? So I want to know how many 2-point shots they made. Let's call that X. X is going to be 2-point shots. And I want to know how many 3-point shots. Let's call that Y. Y is going to be the number of 3-point shots. And I'm going to see how did they combine X and Y to get these two totals. Well, when it comes to points, and I'm talking about 2-point shots, if they made 3 shots, they would get 6 points. Same thing with a 3-point shot. If we have 3-point shots and they made a total of 4 of them, they would get 12 points. And notice that what I'm doing is I'm really taking 3 times the number of shots they made and 2 times the number of shots they made. So to get my total of points, all I'm doing is 2 times X plus 3 times Y. And notice how I'm doing this, by the way. I'm looking at points and I'm considering points, things to do with points. I'm going to do the same thing with baskets and shots, or basket shots. So how do you know the number 37? Like, how do they figure out the number 37? Well, if X is the number of shots they made, that's one type, and Y is the number of shots they made, that's the second type. That means that all they really had to do is they just had to take X plus Y, and that should give them the total number of shots. Because if they made 10 2-point shots, they would have had to make 27 3-point to make the rest of them. We are, of course, told only that they made 2 and 3-point shots, so we're assuming they didn't make any free throws or anything. Well, that right there is a system. So I can solve that system and figure out how many shots for each. And again, this part is up to you. So go ahead and finish those up. If you will be in class tomorrow, the only assignment is to finish up this one. If you missed class today, make sure that you finish all 3 of the problems that I just showed in this video. I hope you guys all are having a wonderful day.